For those of us who stream from a mobile setting, there are a lot of elements about a live stream we cannot control, but there are a few we can. And I'd like to visit with you about a few of those things today. The first thing we have a measure of control over is our internet setting. You may be thinking, I have tried. There is no possible way I have any control over what my cellular company gives me as far as internet at a given venue. And although that's true, there are some things we can do to prepare for what our internet will be when we get there. So I would suggest before you ever go on the trip, before you ever go to where you're going to stream, go ahead and look at your internet service provider's coverage map to see what they offer you in the way of coverage in the area where you will be streaming. And if you find, like sometimes I do, I look on Verizon's coverage map for my part of the world, and if you find that they have a white spot where you're going to be, plan on recording because it's not going to work to try to stream from that kind of location. Once you get to your location, you're going to want to make sure that you use this app to know where the nearest cell phone tower is. It's the one you're going to be pinging off of. Unfortunately, it's also the same one that the other folks who are at that venue are going to be pinging off of as well. And if it's a crowded spot and it's the kind of event where there are a lot of people who are going to want to be recording or streaming, you may suffer in your connection because you only get a piece, a slice of the pie that particular cell tower has to offer. But checking the coverage map first and then going ahead and finding with this app the nearest cell phone tower is going to help you tremendously in planning toward having a reliable internet connection. And then I would say if you have the option, opt for a mobile hotspot instead of your phone's cellular connection. The recent poll I did on the channel showed that between 60 and 70% of us rely on our phone or tablet's cellular device data in order to stream. Cellular device data is the least of reliability that I have found. A mobile hotspot like a MiFi that Verizon offers. I have the 8800 whatever hotspot from Verizon that is. It's a 4G hotspot. It's not the new 5G, but 5G isn't in my area yet. So 4G is what I have to deal with. I have done speed test after speed test, dozens of them to date, with my cell phone and my iPad next to each other. Cell phone using its cellular data, and my iPad using the hotspots data. And without fail, on speed tests, the hotspot data always outperforms my cellular data on the cell phone. I don't know why that is. It may be that Verizon does, in fact, give preference to those MiFi hotspots. If it does, that's great. We have the benefit, and you can add them to your plan for $20 or $30 a month, depending on what your data need is per month. So a hotspot is another feature that will allow a little bit more reliable internet connection when you're going to live stream from a mobile venue. Now, there is one other way to help make sure your internet is reliable. We'll get to that at the end, and it does involve that same hotspot, but I'll tell you about that in a little bit. The second way we want to make sure our mobile live stream looks as professional as possible is setting up our equipment as close to the action as possible. If you're the one who streams a concert so that folks who can't make the concert can enjoy the music of this band that's up and coming, you're going to want to bring your audience as close to the action as you possibly can. And if your camera setup has optical zoom and you can do that from a distance, go ahead and zoom in, and that's great. But so many of us are using the Mevo Start, and we know they don't have an optical zoom on the Mevo Start. We're limited to a digital zoom. We don't want to max that out because the pixel gets granulated, especially in a concert setting. And oftentimes, like where I am at the ballpark in a night game, there's just not as much light to make sure that our picture doesn't get grainy. We want to move the camera. We want to move our equipment as close to the action as we possibly can. That's why there are so many good choices on how to mount a camera to a fence. Now, I'm one who will use a mounting system to a pole, whether it be a magnet or a CCTV arm that I zip tie to the pole. I have a couple of different ways that I go about making sure that I'm mounted securely, but I'm as close to the action as I can possibly be when I'm at a venue where I'm streaming either youth sports or a community event, whatever the case may be. Close to the action is better. And not only do I want to be close to the action, I also want to make sure that I have the option on at least one of my cameras to pan and get different shots. Now, within the Mevo software, there is the ability to choose my shot. I can take the overall shot it gets me, and if I'm willing to crop that down a little bit, I can pan a little bit in the software. But that means I don't have the clearest picture possible. So if I can get my camera as close to the action as possible, and then I have the ability to pan, then I have a better shot. And both the Pivo Pod and Hohem's iSteady Multi Gimbal have proven to be trustworthy sources that I can use to pan back and forth across whatever venue I am trying to live stream. Now, when you set up your equipment, if you don't have a fence to mount to, like at a ballpark, you're going to want to make sure that you do have a good, sturdy foundation underneath your equipment. And a tripod is obviously the best choice that you can make there. One that is tall enough to get high enough to see the action, but also one that is stable enough. You don't want to cheap out on your tripod necessarily. If a tripod's not an option for you, a good weighted mic stand works really, really well. I know a lot of folks who use the Mevo in a church setting will use one mounted on top of a mic stand. It's unobtrusive, it has a slim profile, and it's easy to set up. That weight on the bottom keeps it from having any sway. And the time you need to not have sway is when you have a panning device that's going to be moving it just a little bit, because you don't want it to give you a wiggle back and forth whenever you try to move from one shot to another with that Pivo Pod or with that iSteady Multi. And then the third way that we can make sure that our live stream is much more professional is by investing in sound. Invest in a good quality microphone or two that will allow you to pick up the sound that you aim at. And you may want to isolate some of the sound. So you want to have a variety of microphones that you might have access to. I know that the camera has the built-in microphone that you have the freedom to use. And if you use the Mevo Mic app with the Mevo camera, you have the ability to use the streaming device's microphone as one of your microphones in your stream, and that brings the sound close to you. Proximity, again, is very important when we talk about sound, just like it is when we talk about our picture. We want to have the microphone set as close to what we're trying to record as possible. It just makes sense to give us better sound. But there are three wireless systems that I would point you to if you want to invest in upgrading your sound for your live stream. One, and the first one that I will recommend is the Rode Wireless Go. I have experience with that. The Rode Wireless Go 2 that came out recently is a two microphone, two transmitter, one receiver setup, so that you have two mics that you can place wherever you want to pick up sound. You can put one on you and one on somebody else to do some commentary over the top of your game, or you can set them up to catch field noise and crowd noise, however it is you want to do. And then you have individual control over each of them. The Saramonic Blink 500 version 2 also has, actually, both of the Saramonic Blink 500s, version 1 and version 2, are a two microphone, one receiver setup. And then you have the newcomer to the game of live streaming audio, and that is the Hollyland Lark 150. It's one that I use, and I've actually fallen in love with it. It is on the same par, quality wise, battery life wise, latency wise, even a little bit better latency wise than the Rode Wireless Go is. And the reason that I've fallen in love with it is because it comes in this case that is a charging case. You have one plug to plug in, and everything gets charged just when you drop them in. And when you take them out, they automatically pair. They do a great job of picking up the sound that I want to pick up when I'm live streaming from whatever venue I may be in. These microphones we've talked about are omnidirectional mics that have a lavalier attachment that gives us good sound from a localized area, even though they're omnidirectional. But we may want to choose to aim where our sound is picked up from, and a mini shotgun mic is always a great choice for picking up directional sound. I have the Rode Video Mic Me. I've linked the Rode Video Micro in the description of this video. It's the one that I would recommend for users of the Mevo, or if you're going to use your iPhone to stream as well. But it's going to be able to pick up what's in front of it. It does a great job of keeping from picking up what's behind the microphone. Its cone, its directional, its shape of what it picks up is all out in front of it, just a little bit out beside, but mostly out in front of it. So if you aim this in the same direction that your camera is pointing, you're going to eliminate some of the crowd noise. And sometimes the folks who are at a baseball or football game, a volleyball game, basketball game, whatever it is that you're streaming, you may not want to pick up everything that the folks in the crowd are saying to the coaches, to the referees, to the players, whatever. And it's better to get the field sound. So this mini shotgun mic is always a great choice for directional sound. So I'll come back to internet. I told you a few minutes ago that I would tell you about another way you might could make sure your internet connection is healthy, robust, strong, reliable, all of those things. If you're not doing this as your job, if this is just a thing you do because you enjoy it, or if it's just a side gig, you may be starting to make some money off of the deal, but it's not your job yet, and you don't want to invest in expensive equipment to bond connections. There is a software bonding service called Speedify. I've been testing it over the past couple of weeks, and what it does is it takes my data off of my cellular phone, and it allows me to combine that connection with the data from my Verizon MiFi hotspot and use the data from both of them to create a more powerful connection. We do, in fact, gain a reliable connection by using this service. Many of us had traditionally subscribed to a Vimeo account so we could do our overlays, our scoreboards for these live sports streaming. And since Mevo has said, you know what, we're going to do overlays and scoreboards and graphics without a Vimeo subscription, it's going to be free now to use. That has freed up whatever we were paying for that subscription, and it's allowing us to take those few dollars and put somewhere else. Well, I found that Speedify is the perfect place for me to put those dollars I was aiming towards Vimeo, because month by month it's the same price as Vimeo was on a year's subscription. And if I'm willing to pay a year in advance, it's cheaper than that subscription was to Vimeo. And they even have the option to pay it 3 years in advance and get it dirt cheap per month. Look them up, see if that's something that would be interesting to you. Because if you have both a MiFi hotspot from your internet service provider and you have cellular data on your iPad, iPhone, you have the ability to bond those two connections to have a better upload speed, a more reliable connection. And one better than that, if you have the ability to have your cell data from one carrier and your mobile hotspot data from another carrier, you may even be better off because you have a mixture of two different carriers, and one may be more reliable than the other in certain areas, thus giving you a more reliable internet connection, giving you back control that you've been looking for over your data. Reliable data access, close to the action, and investing in sound, and your mobile streaming will look professional before you know it.